Today I'm going to be showing you how to replace the belt and the clutch assemblies on the Kawasaki Prairie 400. We've got the belt cover still on here, we've got our footwell still on here, and I'm going to try to keep as much of the plastic pieces on here as possible and do this belt change for you. So I'm going to get into it. We've got a handful of bolts that we've already removed, just to speed things up a little bit, but I'm going to tell you exactly where those bolts are. Some of this I'm going to be in the way, but I'm going to do my best to try to stay out of the camera view and get as much of the four-wheeler in as possible. We've got 5 Phillips screws that are down in this footwell, and they look like this, and they've got kind of a rounded head, and it's going to take a larger Phillips screw driver to pull these out. Now, a lot of times what happens, unfortunately, is dirt and debris kind of get stuck down in here. A lot of times they get pretty rusty, and so you're going to have to take what I use a lot, and that's an impact driver. It's one of these, and you find your Phillips head there, you get it turned the right direction, you take a hammer then, a little bit larger hammer than this, and just slam it like that, kind of giving it a little pressure as you turn it. And a lot of times that'll just kind of jolt that bolt enough to pull that out of there. We use that impact driver a lot on machines that have Phillips screws in them and are somewhat challenging to get out. The other nice thing is on this one anyways, you can pull that off, and then I use a 3/8 impact, and I go ahead and remove them the rest of the way. Now, you're not going to be able to just take an impact driver, put them on there, and a lot of times just unscrew them. In this case, we were able to do that on this one. They weren't as tight as they typically are, weren't as rusted as they normally get, and so fairly easy to pull out of there. Next thing you're going to want to do, once you get those removed, you don't actually have to remove these remove these Phillips here off of this foot plate here. A lot of times you can take and pull down. I don't know if this is why they have this little knob on the bottom here, but you're able to pull down on that brake lever and pick this up and just scoot this over. And you can scoot it out of the way. Just so happens that we've had this footwell off for another reason, so we're able just to pull this a little bit farther out of the way. But if you can get it down here, that's great, because the next bolt that we're going to have to take off is right here on the brake lever. This brake lever, this brake pedal sits in an area where you're not going to be able to get this cover off unless this brake pedal is removed. You've got a cotter pin running through here, and then you've got a 12 millimeter. So we're going to grab a pair of side dikes here, and we're going to go ahead and remove the cotter pin. We're able to pull that out. Now we grab a 12 millimeter socket. Again, using our impact driver here, 3/8 DeWalt. Spin that off of there. Now we've got our brake pedal ready to pull off of there. They've got a spring in behind there, so just keep that in mind. You can pull it for a little ways, but then after you pull it about a ½ inch of the way out, you're going to have to grab another pair of pliers or the side dikes here and remove that spring off of there. Once you get that removed, you can take and pull that brake pedal off even farther. Next thing you're going to want to do, behind your right foot here is a boot, and it's on the back of this clutch cover here, and that's just a vent for your clutch system. It's got a Phillips screw in there. It's got a hose clamp. It's got a Phillips screw on there. You go ahead and remove that, and what I do then is go to this other side, and I'll grab something, push in there, and just give it a shove. That boot will just push off of there. Now that is what is holding that belt cover on. Okay, there is 7 bolts around this cover, and I've removed several of them already. What is really nice to have, if you've got access to it, we've got impact driver, and then we've got a long extension. We've got a swivel and an 8 millimeter. What that allows you to do is get in places like this without having to finagle that plastic at all. Get in there and undo these bolts around this belt cover. In particular, this one right here, underneath this fender here, is a little bit of a challenge to get to unless you have some sort of a swivel. Now what you can do is come in from the back side and go up this way also going to be a challenge. Just really nice to have one of these swivels here. What you want to be careful of, they make swivels like that. A lot of times you can get these at about any auto parts store. The problem with these are, and even the impact driver, you can see this, but not quite as much. These pins that run through here are very cheaply made and very cheaply put together. Also, you can turn them at a way sharper angle. So once you start spinning this with an impact like this, it's going to do one of those and your socket's going to go flying off. So you just got to be really careful. Now you can do the same thing with this and it would do the same thing. But you see it's at way less of an angle and doesn't throw that socket as far or as fast. You just need thinner safety glasses is all with this one. So we can go around now and undo all of these. All the way around. Now we got that brake pedal off of there. We've got that boot on the back off of there. This footwell's out of the way. Now we're just going to be able to pull this out. Our rear fender here, our shift plastic here is still going to be in the way, so just kind of be careful pulling that off of there. But you are going to be able to pull it off all the way. All right, and once you get it around those plastics, be really careful that you don't lose these grommets that running through here. They kind of center those mounting bolts and potentially get lost. This one here just stayed with the actual bolt itself. So you just got to keep in mind and watch where those go. This belt, which is a little loose, these clutches actually look really good. It looks like somebody's been in here before. I'm guessing this was all replaced. These sheaves feel really good, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a close-up shot here in a second. But everything looks really good. I was mainly just pulling this to show a video here quick, and I'll continue to remove these clutches, but these are certainly rebuilt. These are new weights in here, and there's new buttons, and I'll show you a separate video of disassembling that and reinstalling those buttons. Now what we can do is, if we're going to replace our belt, what you can do now, if you've got a new belt that you're going to go on with, what I would suggest doing is taking this belt, trying to pull it over the lip there, and spinning that clutch backwards. And you're going to just be able to spin that belt right off. Okay, we've got our belt off of there. You can see it there. Make sure if it's directional, make sure you're going the right direction. This doesn't look like it is. Going back together, then I would put it on the front clutch and do the exact same thing, but in reverse. So I'd put it in your back one, in your rear, your secondary, your driven clutch here. Put it and then spin it around. What you don't want to do is get your finger underneath here and start spinning. A lot of times this motor will catch and it'll jerk those clutches, and you could really hurt your finger. I don't know that you'll lose your finger, but the other place to watch is down here. A lot of times that belt just will start walking up this back clutch here and just binds it pretty good. So what this is doing is your clutch is all the way down on your spacer here on your front clutch, but on your back clutch, it's actually spreading those sheaves and allowing that belt to drop down. If you're not able to do that, to get it on this way, what you can do is remove these clutches, and I'll show you how to do that quick. We're going to go ahead and remove this one. So this is actually reverse threaded, okay? So they call that left-hand threads. So you're going to spin this the opposite direction that you normally would. So you're going to, looks like you're tightening this up. Go ahead and spin it off of there. That bolt's going to come off. Keep in mind the order of these. This is actually a spacer. It actually will center your bolt here, and you got to have that in there. If you put your washer on the opposite side, your spacer won't sit in there like it should. Your bolt won't go in there far enough. So keep in mind the order that these go on. Now we take our special tool here. Let me know if you need this. I can get one for you. All right, we've got your back clutch now ready to pull off. We've got a 14mm bolt there. Same thing, you're going to loosen this in reverse order. And then we've got your bolt here. There's actually no spacer or retainer on this, you just have a large washer. This clutch here, you don't actually need a special tool. You're able just to pull it off. And there's our back clutch off there. So check that, inspect that. This is the way that you disassemble it. Now I'm going to do a separate video on this. Don't just take a pair of snap ring pliers and pull this. So you will have some serious injuries if you do that the wrong way. So check those videos out on my channel. Now if you want, at that point, you can just replace your belt. Going back together then, I'll take this back clutch, I'll slide that belt in there, and I make sure that it's in the groove, and I put it at a little bit of an angle. I try to push it in as far as it'll go, and I find that shaft, I kind of tip that clutch in that direction, I find that shaft, and it takes a little bit of time sometimes to line those splines up. There we go, got those splines lined up. Take this, Loctite it, put it in, and remember it's reverse thread, so you're actually going to spin it backwards. Again, same thing. This one, even though you had to have a special tool to remove the clutch, putting it back together, you slide it on there, put your bolt in there, make sure your spacers are in the set spot that they're supposed to. Using Loctite again on that bolt there. Remember, keep in mind which direction that bolt goes. Alright, belt is on there. Check for tension there, make sure that's good. You can spin that over if you need to. Grab your clutch cover. And then finagle this back into where it's supposed to go here. There is a seal that sits in behind that cover, or on this cover here, down in that groove. So that's what I checked to make sure that that's stuck down in there, or make sure there was one. Typically, once they get stuck down in there, they don't come out. So slide that on, you can tap it into place. Because of that groove where that seal is, that should just sit in that spot exactly where it needs to go. Now we're gonna put all 7 of those bolts back in there, around there. You're gonna make sure that you start those finger with your fingers here, or don't just start impacting those in. That's an aluminum crankcase that you will be That's an aluminum crankcase cover behind there that you can damage if you got those bolts going in there crooked. After we get those bolts on there, don't forget the air duct in the back here. Slide that on, tighten that clamp, and then you can take and put this pedal on here. Hook that spring up, make sure that that's done properly. Go ahead and push that brake pedal all the way back. When you're doing that, you want to make sure, because a lot of times what happens is that spring binds in there. You're not able to shove that all the way in. So you might have to come in from the bottom, push up on that spring so that that spring is more centered, allowing that brake pedal to push on there. Also, being mindful, you've got a post right here, a 10mm bolt that works as kind of a stopper for this brake pedal. This brake pedal's got to be down far enough so you can push that over top of that 10mm post, that 10mm stopper. After you're done with that, you can go ahead, slide this back over top, and again, you might have to pull down on that brake lever. Slide it over top, set that down. You've got 5 Phillips screws right here, 3 in the back, 2 in the front. You can go ahead and install that. This footwell here, these front 3 bolts. Make sure those are tight, and you are all set. You can, if you would like to, while you've got that belt cover off, you can actually start your 4-wheeler and run it just to make sure all your parts are in great working condition. What you want to make sure is you don't have any kind of tools set up here, or a small child or a large child, because if they get any kind of clothing or fingers or anything down here with that clutch cover being off, you can really damage something or somebody if they get involved in that clutch with that belt spinning. So that is servicing your clutches on a Kawasaki Prairie 400. If you've got questions or comments, make sure and leave those below. If you found this video helpful, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for watching.